One of the most significant changes in iOS 27 Mail involves not what happens inside the app, but what happens when you are using other apps. Apple is making mail data available to the broader operating system in ways that allow email context to surface at the moments when it is useful, without requiring you to switch to Mail and search for it yourself. The call context feature is the most immediately practical example. When your iPhone is actively on a phone call, the system can now surface relevant information from your emails that relates to the call. If you are on a call with a restaurant and your emails contain a reservation confirmation from that restaurant, the reservation details can appear on your screen during the call. You do not have to remember the reservation number or switch away from the call to find it. The same logic applies to other call contexts. A call with your doctor's office where your emails contain recent appointment confirmations, or a call with a service provider where emails contain account numbers and case references. The information that would otherwise require interrupting a call to search for can appear automatically, because the system understands the relationship between who you are calling and what your email contains. The calendar integration takes a different approach to the same underlying principle. When Mail identifies emails that contain flight confirmations, hotel bookings, dinner reservations, or event tickets, it can offer single-tap addition of those details to your calendar. The intelligence required here involves extracting the relevant details, the date, time, location, booking reference, from the email's content and formatting them correctly for a calendar entry. This is functionality that third-party apps and services have offered for years. What changes in iOS 27 is that it happens natively within the operating system, without requiring you to authorize a third-party service TME to access your email, and with the privacy benefit of on-device processing rather than sending your email content to an external service to parse. The interface refresh, the visual update to Mail in iOS 27, is part of Apple's broader introduction of what they are calling the liquid glass design language, the visual approach that is being applied across the operating system in iOS 27. For Mail specifically, the changes focus on legibility and user control more than on visual novelty. The toolbar layout is being standardized and unified in ways that reduce the visual inconsistency between different views within the app. If you have noticed that the tool arrangement in your inbox looks slightly different from the toolbar when you are reading a specific email or composing a new one, that kind of visual inconsistency is what the unified approach is designed to eliminate. Consistent visual language across the app reduces the cognitive load of navigating it because you know where controls are before you look for them. The translucency that is part of the liquid glass aesthetic gives the interface a more modern appearance. But Apple is acknowledging that translucency is not universally preferred or universally legible. A new adjustable slider allows users to control how much translucency they want in the Mail interface. This level of user control over visual presentation is somewhat unusual for Apple, which typically makes design decisions centrally and applies them uniformly. Offering a slider that adjusts translucency suggests that Apple's user research identified legibility concerns with the default translucent appearance significant enough that they decided to give users control rather than committing to a single default. For users with visual sensitivity to certain contrast levels or background movement, the ability to reduce translucency to improve text legibility is a practical accessibility accommodation, even if it was not framed primarily in accessibility terms. Performance and organization. The performance improvements in iOS 27 Mail address something that sounds mundane but affects every interaction with the app. Message loading speed, the time between tapping an email and seeing its content. On fast connections with small messages, this delay is imperceptible. On slower connections, with longer emails containing images, formatted content, or attachments, the delay can be genuinely noticeable. Apple is describing improvements to the message loading pipeline that should make the app feel more responsive across a broader range of network conditions and message types. Performance improvements in existing software are easy to promise and difficult to verify until the software ships. The subjective experience of an app feeling snappier is real and meaningful, but not easily quantified in advance. The credibility of Apple's performance claims will be tested by user experience after release rather than confirmed by pre-release documentation. The inbox categorization system, which sorts incoming mail into primary, transactions, updates, promotions, and similar categories, is being updated with improved on-device models designed to make the sorting more accurate and consistent. The current categorization is functional but imperfect in ways that most users have noticed. Emails that should be in transactions end up in primary. Promotional emails from organizations you actively engage with get filed as promotions when you might prefer to see them in primary. The sorting occasionally makes decisions that seem clearly wrong. The improved models are designed to be better at understanding the difference between a transaction you care about and a promotional message you do not, and at learning from patterns in how you engage with your email over time. Whether the improvement is significant enough to make the categorization reliably correct rather than mostly correct is something only extended use after release will determine. The overall picture. And what Apple is doing with Mail in iOS 27 is interesting because of what it prioritizes. The features being added, better search, Siri integration, cross-app awareness, performance improvements, are not the kind of features that generate excitement in a keynote presentation. They are the kind of features that make a tool you use every day actually work the way you expect it to. The email apps that people have been using instead of Mail, apps like Spark, Airmail, or Outlook for iOS, have been competitive in part because they addressed the search and organization problems that Apple was not fixing. An on-device semantic search index and improved categorization models directly address the core reasons those alternatives attracted users. The AI integration, specifically Write with Siri and the inbox cleanup capability, goes further than the third-party alternatives. Currently offer and represents a genuine functional advance, rather than just catching up to existing competition. Apple Mail has been the app that iPhone users tolerate rather than enjoy for years. The search that cannot find an email you know exists. The categories that misfile things with frustrating regularity. The interface that has looked essentially the same since the era when people were still printing MapQuest directions. The feeling that every third-party email app on the App Store understands how people actually use email better than Apple does. That is the version of Apple Mail that iOS 26 shipped with. iOS 27 is Apple's acknowledgement that the situation needed more than another round of cosmetic adjustments. What is coming in iOS 27 is not a feature addition on top of the existing Mail app. It is a systematic rebuild of the app's core functionality, touching search, artificial intelligence integration, cross-app awareness, interface design, performance, and organization simultaneously. Apple is not adding a new button and calling it a major update. They are fixing the plumbing. Let me walk you through every significant change, what each one actually does, and whether it addresses the specific problems that have made Apple Mail the app people keep meaning to replace. The search problem is finally being addressed. If you have used Apple Mail's search function with any regularity, you have experienced the moment of confusion when an email you definitely received, definitely contains the words you typed, and definitely exists somewhere in your inbox, simply does not appear in the search results. The current search architecture is keyword-based. It looks for literal character matches between your search query and the text content of your emails. This works when you remember exactly how something was worded. It fails when you remember the concept of an email, but not the specific words used. You remember that someone sent you something about the quarterly report review meeting. You search for quarterly report meeting, and the email does not appear because the actual email subject said Q3 retrospective, and the body used the word agenda rather than meeting. A keyword search failed you because your memory of the concept did not match the literal text. iOS 27 replaces this with what Apple is calling an expanded search index, built on semantic understanding rather than keyword matching. The system is designed to understand what you mean rather than what you typed. The quarterly report meeting search would now be more likely to surface the Q3 retrospective agenda. Email because the search system understands the conceptual relationship between those terms rather than requiring a literal match. More significantly, the new search allows for conversational refinement. Rather than abandoning a search that returned poor results and starting over with different keywords, you will be able to refine within the search. Show me only the ones from last month. Narrow it to emails from my manager. Filter to only the ones with attachments. The search becomes a dialogue rather than a single query that either works or does not. This is the difference between a search tool built in the era of keyword databases and one built with the understanding of how people actually remember and look for information. People remember context, concepts, and relationships. But they do not remember exact phrasing. The search should accommodate that reality. The index that makes this work is built and maintained entirely on your device. This is the Apple Intelligence approach to AI features. The processing happens locally on your iPhone, rather than sending your email content to external servers for analysis. Your email content stays on your device. This matters more for email than for most other applications, because email contains the most sensitive categories of personal information that most people have in digital form: financial statements, medical correspondence, legal communications, personal relationships. An on-device search index means that data does not leave your phone to make the search work. Siri inside your inbox. The artificial intelligence integration in iOS 27 Mail goes considerably further than improved search. Apple is embedding rebuilt Siri capabilities directly into the Mail interface in ways that allow you to interact with your inbox through natural language rather than through the mechanical process of selecting, filtering, moving, and deleting emails manually. The most practical demonstration of this capability is what Apple is calling inbox cleanup. You can ask Siri, through the Mail interface, to clean up promotional emails from a specific sender or category. Rather than manually identifying, selecting, and deleting a series of emails, you describe what you want done in plain language and the system executes it. The intelligence required to do this correctly involves understanding which emails match your description, understanding the difference between an email you want to delete and an email from the same sender that you want to keep, and executing the action without producing the kind of overzealous cleanup that removes things you intended to keep. This is a harder problem than it sounds when you think about the edge cases. The Write with Siri feature addresses the composition side of email. You can ask Siri to draft an email based on a description of what you want to communicate. You can ask it to edit a draft you have already written for clarity or length. You can ask it to change the tone, making a casual email more professional for a formal context, or making a stiff draft more conversational for a message to a friend. The practical value of tone adjustment is more significant than it might initially appear. Most people have experienced the situation where they have written something accurate, but are uncertain whether it reads appropriately for the relationship and context. Being able to ask for a more formal version or a warmer version without rewriting from scratch reduces the friction of email composition meaningfully. These Siri features require the processing capability of the iPhone 15 Pro and newer models to run on-device. The computational demands of the language models involved exceed what older hardware can execute locally, while maintaining the responsive performance that makes the features useful rather than frustrating. If you are on an older device, some of these features will either be unavailable or will require cloud processing for the most demanding functions. This is the reality of AI features that actually do meaningful work. They require hardware that can execute meaningful computation. The cross-app awareness features, call context in particular, require the system-level integration that only a first-party Apple application can provide. Third-party email apps cannot surface their data during a phone call the way Mail can in iOS 27 because they do not have the system-level access that Apple's own applications have. iOS 27 Mail is Apple spending an update cycle fixing what users have been complaining about rather than adding what looks impressive in marketing materials. That is either a sign of confidence or necessity, possibly both. For people who have been tolerating Apple Mail rather than enjoying it, the honest answer to whether these changes are enough depends on which specific problems have been most frustrating in your use. If search has been the primary issue, the semantic index and conversational refinement represent a meaningful improvement. If the AI features sound useful to how you actually use email, they are genuinely novel rather than incremental. If the categorization has been frustrating you, improved models help but will not be perfect. The plumbing is being fixed. Whether the renovation is finished when iOS 27 ships is something the first few weeks of real-world use will determine.